The chandeliers of the East Room glowed like 1,000 quiet suns. Strings hummed softly in the distance, and servers in white gloves carried champagne flutes like they were handling relics. Barron Trump stood near a tall window, away from the polished laughter and polite conversations of politicians, CEOs, and celebrities. Outside, beyond the glass, the south lawn lay bathed in moonlight. But inside Barron, a storm had been gathering for days. He tugged slightly at his light blue tie, feeling as though it tightened with every headline he had read in the last 48 hours. Rejected by Harvard, again. The phrasing of the news article had felt almost gleeful, as if his name made him unworthy, as if Barron Trump's existence was merely a political statement. Twice now, he murmured to himself, not realizing someone had stopped near him. A low, familiar voice replied beside him, "That's two more than I ever bothered with." Barron turned. Elon Musk stood there, a glass of water in his hand, dressed in an understated black suit. His presence was commanding, yet oddly unassuming. Barron tried to smile, but his shoulders remained stiff. "I guess that works if you're a self-made billionaire, but for someone like me, everything feels labeled before it begins," he said, looking back toward the lawn. Elon studied the young man quietly for a moment, then spoke. "You think the name Trump is a weight chained to your ankles," he said calmly. "But in the right waters, weights can help you sink deeper into truth." Barron furrowed his brow. "That sounds poetic, but I don't want to sink. I want to be judged fairly. On merit, on effort," he said, frustration flickering behind his eyes. "And you think Harvard would have given you that fairness?" Elon asked, lifting an eyebrow. I don't know. Maybe. I wanted a place where I could just be me, not my father's son, not a campaign shadow. Just Barron," Barron replied, his voice quieter now. "That place may exist," Elon nodded, "but I doubt it's a university. Universities aren't designed for people who don't fit molds." Barron turned to face him fully now, his voice firmer. "So you're saying I shouldn't care? That I should just walk away from the idea of formal education?" "I'm saying," Elon began, "that if you need a stamp to prove your worth, you've already surrendered power you don't need to give away," he explained, his voice steady and without judgment. For a moment, silence hung between them, not awkward, but reflective. The kind of silence that stretches when two people realize they're not having a surface-level exchange. Barron sighed and looked down at his polished shoes. "Do you ever feel like your name makes you more target than man?" "Every day," Elon admitted. "But I learned that if you let them define the narrative, you lose the plot." The clinking of glasses and murmurs of conversation faded into the background as Barron and Elon stepped away from the crowd, finding refuge near a quiet alcove just beyond the main ballroom. The warm glow of antique sconces lit their faces, casting long shadows on the marble columns behind them. There was something timeless about the space, like two different generations of ambition had found a neutral ground for a conversation that had waited years to happen. Elon leaned slightly against the wall, hands tucked into his pockets. "You know, I was accepted to Stanford," he began casually. "Went for all of 2 days. Sat in one class and thought, this is it? This is what everyone's chasing?" Barron blinked. "You left? Just like that?" "I left because I realized the gatekeepers weren't guarding treasure. They were just guarding gates," Elon explained, his voice steady, as if he'd said it 1,000 times before, but never meant it more than in this moment. Barron nodded slowly, still absorbing it. "But don't people look at that and say, well, that's Elon Musk, he can afford to do that? I'm not you. I'm not my dad either. I'm stuck somewhere in between, trying to figure out what I want, while everyone else keeps telling me who I am." "That's the trap," Elon said, his tone dropping a note. "Letting the world define your ambition, they'll tell you what to want. A university degree, a polished resume, acceptance. But that's just training to become what they need, not what you are." Barron folded his arms across his chest, his voice more vulnerable now. "I thought if I got into Harvard, it would mean something. That I could finally prove I earned something on my own. That I wasn't just a product of politics." "You were trying to buy legitimacy with a credential," Elon said bluntly. "But the truth is, Legitimacy isn't given by others. It's built day by day, in silence, when no one's watching. Barron looked away, his gaze drifting toward a portrait of a past president on the wall. I hate how people assume I've had everything handed to me. They think I'm spoiled, soft, uninterested. But I've had to carry the weight of every lie told about my father, every mistake he made, every headline with my name in it, and I didn't write a single one of them. Elon stepped forward slightly, his tone softened. Then write your own, he said. Stop waiting for Harvard or anyone else to give you permission. Legacy is not inherited, it's authored. Barron met his gaze again, this time without hesitation. There was something awakening behind his eyes, not anger, but clarity. A sense that maybe for the first time, he wasn't asking what others thought of him, but what he thought of himself. You really believe that? He asked, voice low. I live it, Elon replied. The clamor of the White House gala continued behind them, but for Barron Trump, the room felt miles away. He stood in the alcove's silence, his mind spinning with words that had carved themselves into his memory. Legacy is not inherited, it's authored. Elon sipped from his glass and turned to look out the tall window that framed the south lawn. People will keep doubting you, Barron, he said, breaking the stillness. And not just because you're your father's son, but because you'll remind them that their definitions of success are too small. That frightens them. Barron stepped closer to the window, his reflection ghosting over the glass. Do you think I should stop chasing Harvard? Just give it up, he asked, voice tentative but curious. Elon shook his head. It's not about giving it up. It's about asking whether the pursuit is truly yours or just something you're doing to silence critics. Ask yourself, if no one ever found out where you went to school, would you still choose the same path? Barron was silent for a moment. It was a question no one had ever asked him before, not even himself, and that silence held an answer. I don't even know what I'd study there, Barron admitted. It's always been about the name, the validation, the revenge, maybe. For what? Elon asked. For being misunderstood, Barron said slowly. For every time someone looked at me like I didn't deserve to speak. Then speak louder, Elon replied, but say something worth hearing. Barron turned from the window and looked directly at him. His voice, calm but charged with something deeper, something decisive, filled the space between them. I've spent my whole life thinking my choices had to be perfect. That one wrong step would prove the world right that I'm just a figurehead, not a person. But maybe it's time I stop proving and start building. Not because I need to win their approval, but because I need to believe in my own. Elon smiled faintly, a flicker of pride in his expression. Then build something no one can ignore. Not because you're a Trump, but because you're Barron. There was no applause, no headline. Just a young man deciding that the most important approval wasn't a university's, it was his own. In that quiet corner of the most powerful building in America, Barron Trump chose something far more radical than acceptance. He chose himself. That night, Barron didn't post a tweet. He didn't give an interview. But something had shifted inside him like the first silent brick in a wall no one else could see yet. For so long, he had lived in the shadow of a name, of expectations, of a world constantly watching and whispering. But for the first time, he understood that real freedom wasn't escaping the shadow, it was choosing to plant something that would grow despite it. The world might still call him Trump's son, still measure him by schools, news cycles, and family legacy. But Barron wasn't waiting for their permission anymore. He had met a man who built rockets in cities, who had been laughed at and doubted, and built anyway. And maybe, just maybe, Barron Trump would do the same. Let's keep the conversation going. Subscribe, share, and drop your thoughts below. Your perspective is valuable and might inspire others.